Yeah, I didn't actually talk much about metaphysics, but it is the study of the sort of the ultimate constituents of universe or reality. It's about being or beings. If you're a pluralist, it's about beings. If you're a monist, it's about being. Most philosophers, it's about the relationship between being and beings. How do the particulars relate to the ultimate container, or the ultimate source, or the ultimate force, moving it all through? So, but as in everything in philosophy, there is no agreement on the meaning of these big terms. Each new generation or century, there'll be new philosophers, and they'll say, what those people call metaphysics, that needs to be changed, because they didn't take seriously enough this study or that study, whatever else. Then you get a new definition. So at the present time, there's hardly any agreement about what makes philosophy philosophy. That's one of the major philosophical questions. Just what is it? What's the right way to do it? Not much agreement about that. Right. From a common sense point of view, Jesus was a Jewish man born approximately, let's say beginning of the BC AD, all right, 2,000 years ago, had a mother. Her name may or may not have been Miriam, okay? And then his life was recorded in these various texts, 4 of which became standard, but in fact, we now know there were lots and lots of others. We sort of always knew there were others, but were lost, whatever else. But now there's others that are becoming just as, almost as important as those 4. And they tell about certain other women, okay? Now, also very importantly, in that, when Jesus is executed, there's one man, at least, and 2 or maybe 3 women, all called Mary. Okay, so you say, well, that's real. Then the next great event is the morning, the Sunday morning, this being, who is a historical figure, a human being, then the body is not to be seen. And some version of him appears not to the 11 guys, all right, not even to his mother, but to this woman, Mary Magdalene. Clearly very important. And you could get the idea, if you read a lot of literature about this, that the 3 most important people was the mother, Mary Magdalene, and John, the beloved disciple. Okay? Now, then we get into kind of a division. Are we going to take this high spiritual road and look for these beings who somehow participate in a Sophianic reality? Or are we going to go more historical, sociological route? Well, sociologically, the women get kept out of the prominence in the story because the guys are telling the story, and they then change the whole thing around about only guys can be priests and bishops, etc., even though it wasn't true in the beginning, early centuries. And then you get into a not very impressive historical situation. Okay? What's happening at a higher level, if you think there is a higher level? Well, the point of the lecture I'm trying to give is that there may be a reality called Sophia that is working through thought, but also working through art, also working through certain biographies, and that reality is pushing against a consciousness which is pushing against it. So there's a kind of a very high level conflict going on between this divine feminine reality and the guys who are in charge of history and institutions. All right? So now if you go back and you read, well, a history of powerful, brilliant, amazing Christian women, that's why I mentioned in here Hildegard and Julian and some others. Then you say, well, where were they when I was whatever else? Well, it turns out they're there, but the people who are doing the teaching weren't looking at them. Right? And that's still true. So it's a tradition, if you do Catholic, which is what you mentioned, that's a tradition that is has made some transition to contemporary thinking, and some of its forms are definitely continuing to be medieval. And so they have a whole conflict in themselves about how to be contemporary without losing certain things, but then the things they keep might not be the things most worth keeping.
But Robert, is Sophia mentioned in the Bible?
So wisdom is mentioned many, many times in the Hebrew scriptures, and in the New Testament, these women are treated as Sophia figures, mysterious, infinitely compassionate, infinitely sort of wise and resourceful and kind of inexhaustible, but not the word. Right. So then now if you get the concept and you say, well, the point of this book that I love, by Baring and Cashford, two women, authors, both Jungian analysts, right, is to say Sophia is a single reality, just like a Platonic ideal, with these many expressions. Isis, Mary, so I shouldn't do Sophia, Mary, but also, for example, I gave a lecture for Aurobindo's birthday at the Cultural Integration Fellowship on Sri Aurobindo and the mother, in which I suggested that the mother, who was the companion of Sri Aurobindo, might be a Sophia figure. And maybe all of those Indian mothers, like Ramakrishna has a mother, not a biological mother, a spiritual companion, who's the other half of his spiritual work. So my friend Christopher Bamford has this phrase, like Venus, she is arising, and we are seeing the hem of her garment. So we are seeing this appearance where we would have missed it in the past, we're now seeing it. So some people are going back, like I mentioned Robert Powell and Christopher Bamford, now go back and read Christianity and say, here's Sophia, here's Sophia. And some other people are doing it with the Hebrew scriptures, and some other people. Andrew Harvey has a book, in fact, it's a course he taught here in the 90s, The Return of the Divine Mother, where he does it in all the traditions, including Islam, Shelley. He mostly relies on Rumi. It's a good chapter. Andrew has a very exciting imagination. And, imagination is an interesting word in that it's, for some people that means it's not real. For other people, that's the most real. And sometimes it's a mix. Right? So